And now may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be always acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. Amen. There's been a lot of controversy lately about our motto, our national motto, one of our mottos, In God We Trust, because there are some secular groups who have worked very hard to get it removed. They believe in a secular society like ours that it doesn't have a place on our money or on our license plates or anywhere in the public sphere. Now, no matter what your feelings on that, I would suggest to you that In God We Trust really isn't our motto. If you look at modern America and our culture, I would suggest to you that a more appropriate motto is do it yourself. I can't think of anything that better symbolizes who we are and where our society is than do it yourself. That's the way we're taught. That's the way we grow up. The idea of pull yourself up, whatever you want. If you want it, go work for it and get it. Don't rely on anybody else. Don't count on anybody else. You do it yourself. Now, in a narrower sense, this idea of do it yourself has kind of, at least in modern times anyway, come more to mean home improvement projects. DIY is what we call it. And it has become a very, very popular idea. There are entire sections of stores, as a matter of fact, dedicated to this. Websites dedicated to help people do it themselves. There's a TV channel called DIY that walks people through projects that they can do themselves. There are other channels and other shows dedicated to rebuilding homes and fixing things ourselves. The idea that we can do these things around our home, we can fix things, we can take care of the garden, we can do home improvement projects, and we can do it much more cheaply and efficiently than anybody else. And I think that's probably the popularity of it. I think there's two reasons DIY has become so popular. One is a cost issue. It is, quite frankly, a lot cheaper to do things ourselves than to hire somebody else to do it. My brother-in-law Raymond, who is an excellent DIY guy, loves to work with his hands. He went out and built a deck on his back porch here and just went out and bought the materials and built this beautiful deck on the back of his house. And I asked him, I said, well, how much money do you think you saved? And he said, probably $10,000, simply because he put in the work and the time to do it himself. And there's a lot of people like that. That's a very good reason for doing it. I think the other reason DIY is so popular is simply the satisfaction people get out of looking at something and saying, I did that. I did that. And taking pride in ownership. And I think that's a big part of it as well. But there are just some times, no matter how hard we work or no matter how hard we try, where we have to simply back off and say, you know what, I can't do this. I can't fix this. I don't know what to do. We had a situation over the parsonage, been ongoing now for quite a while, where there's a drip coming out of the bathtub in the master bath. And we had Marvin come over and look at it, and he put some silicone around the outside. He said, well, that should fix it. Well, the drip comes back. So now he silicones the inside. Drip's still there. And finally he says, you know what, I don't think we may have done that right. It may have been wet when we did it the first time. So we stripped off all the silicone and put it on again. And we thought, surely that will take care of it. But guess what? Drip's still there. I mean, there are just some things where you get to the point where you say, as much as I'd like to fix this, as much as I'd enjoy doing it, can't be done. Maybe somebody else is going to have to take a look And I think all of this directly applies to our faith and what we're seeing in our readings this morning. Let's start with the supposition, with the idea that like a DIY project, we as individuals are broken, because we are. We need fixing. Because of sin, because of what we've done in our lives, we are messed up. We're broken, we're hurting, we suffer because of sin, which is separation from God. We need fixing. I hope everyone can agree on that point. Because if we can't agree on that simple starting point, then the rest of it makes no sense. But that, in terms of our faith, is our starting point. We're broken because of sin, and we did it to ourselves. Look at the Old Testament reading from Jeremiah, and one of my favorite phrases in the Bible about sour grapes and setting the children's teeth on edge. How descriptive is that? That's just another way of saying we're messed up. We're broken. And because the parents have sinned, it sets the children's teeth on edge. We've inherited that sin from Adam and Eve. And we are in desperate need of fixing. Such vivid imagery, the sour grapes and the teeth set on edge. Just another way of saying we're broken and we need help and we need fixing. All right, so if we can acknowledge that point, the question then becomes, who's going to fix it? And how are we going to fix it? Are you a DIY person in regards to your faith? In other words, are you going to try to get in there and fix it yourself? I'll make it right. I'll make it right. I can fix this. I can do it myself. Now, the same things we talked about with DIY work apply to our faith as well. Some people will look at the cost of fixing the problem through Jesus and decide it's too much. Think about that for a minute. Some people, in order to fix the problem, will not go to Jesus because the cost is too high. Because the cost is high. Jesus can fix the problem, but the cost is surrender. You must surrender your old life. You must surrender your will to Him. The only way you can fix the problem is to get on your knees and to say, Jesus, I'm wrong, I'm a sinner, I'm broken, I need fixing. Please help. You've got to give everything. And that's a cost some people are just not willing to pay. They just can't go that far. They're not willing to pay that price. And these are the faith DIYers, the do-it-yourselfers. I'll fix the problem myself. I'll meditate more. I'll eat better. I'll spend more time alone by myself with nature. I'll change some of my habits. Doesn't work. Can't fix the problem. The cost of fixing the problem through Jesus is high because it requires you to surrender all of that and come on your knees and give up that old life that you've been living. Now, the other reason people like DIY so much, remember we talked about, besides the cost, was the pride of ownership. The pride of ownership. And these two ideas really are related. The idea that you've got, that you can point at something and say, that's me, that reflects well on me. And again, that's the problem. Because to truly fix the problem, you've got to get rid of that pride. Because fixing the problem involves us pointing to Jesus, not pointing to ourselves. It's pride that causes us to say, not only can I do this myself, but I am going to find my faith in a way that's agreeable to me, that I agree with, that doesn't cause me to give up all of myself, that allows me to retain who I am. And I think we see some of that in that reading from Timothy this morning, where Paul talks about there will come a time when people will not put up with sound doctrine and instead will surround themselves because of their itching ears. They want to hear. They want people to tell them what they want to hear. And what do people want to hear? What do people want to hear? You're a good person. You're good. You can do this. Don't worry about all that stuff in the Bible that talks about what a sinner you are. God created you and loves you, and you can just be who you are, and you don't have to change anything. You don't have to make any accommodation. You can just be who God created you to be. Well, it is true that God loves us. But His Word is His Word, and it's there for a reason. And this idea of itching ears, people wanting to surround themselves with people who will tell them what they want to hear. People leave churches for all kinds of reasons. People will walk away from church for all kinds of reasons, a lot of them dumb reasons, minor reasons, silly reasons. I didn't like the screens you put up in the sanctuary. I'm out of here. I don't like the songs we're singing. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to go find another church. But there are some major reasons, too, that people leave. Well, you can't preach about sin and hell, and you can't tell me that I'm going to hell if I don't believe in Jesus. You can't tell me what I'm doing is a sin. I have the right to do what I want and think what I want and believe what I want. And so they go and find another church that will tell them that. They will surround themselves with people who will tell them what their itching ears want to hear, which is basically pride. It's, again, not willing to pay the cost to be healed. Healing comes only in one place. Spiritual healing comes from one place and from God through His Son Jesus, and that's it. You cannot fix the problem yourself. No matter how hard you try, you can't plug all the leaks. And God reminds us of that this morning in that reading from Jeremiah, where He says He will create a new covenant, that His law and His words will be written on our hearts, that all His people will know Him, and that He will forgive our wickedness if only we will come to Him to have the problem fixed. Are you willing to have the problem fixed? First of all, do you recognize a problem in your life? Do you see a sin problem in your life? And if you do, what are you doing to fix it? Are you determined to fix it yourself? Or are you willing to get on your knees and surrender to Jesus, the only one who can fix it? The only one who can fix the problem. The cost is high. The cost is high because it costs you your whole life, that old life of sin and death. But isn't it well worth it? Amen.